Well, hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us once again for another episode of Candor with Pres Eve. I am thrilled today to have with us Representative Susanna Whips and Representative Dan Carey from our region. And Rep Whips, tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your district. I know you're the only independent representative in Massachusetts. You hold that title. And what does that mean to you?
Years ago, I switched from party affiliation to independent. 67% of my district, the second Franklin district, which is made up of 12 towns across 3 counties. 67% of the folks who live in the district are unenrolled or independent. And it just was something that I felt myself evolving and just moving from the party structure to being able to work on both sides of the aisle and had listened to people on both sides and do the best I could for the people I represent.
Well, watching you, we know that you're definitely a very collaborative legislator. So thank you so much for representing us in all the wonderful ways that you do.
Thank you.
And Rep Carey, tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your district.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me and having me here today. I'm Dan Carey. I'm the state rep for the 2nd Hampshire district, which is East Hampton, Hadley, South Hadley, and half of Granby. I share Granby with our friend Rep Mindy Dom, and I'm just starting my 2nd term in the state legislature.
Wonderful. So let's dig into the questions. As you both know, the Opioids Task Force in our region has been very active and very successful with both preventative and response care for individuals and families affected by the opioids epidemic. And I know that you've both been very involved in this realm. Can you share with us a little bit about your work? And maybe you can kick us off with Rep Whips.
Sure. I sit on the Joint Committee for Mental Health, Substance Use, and Recovery. I've been on that every term I've been in the legislature, and it's my favorite committee that I participate in. I'm so proud to sit on this committee and also be able to brag and laud all of the work that the Franklin County and North Quabbin Opioid Task Force has done. They're such leaders. Sheriff Donlin, DA Sullivan, and Registrar John Merrigan really hit the ground running when the opioid epidemic first appeared in our area. And they and their team have worked really hard to remove stigma, to educate our communities. And they're a model for the state as well as for the nation with the work they've done. And just so proud to support them in any way I can.
Absolutely. We've gotten to do a little bit of work with Deb McLaughlin, and she is just amazing, part of that quartet. And I completely agree with you with the other 3 members of that group. They're wonderful. Rep Carey, what's been your work in this realm?
This has been a passion of mine for many years. When I was working, prior to being a legislator, I worked for DA Dave Sullivan. And I started as a courtroom administrator, just making sure the attorneys had the files they needed and helping with the calendar. And then by the time I left, I was going to law school at night and was an assistant district attorney by the time I finished up. But in between, I helped the DA start his drug diversion and treatment program. And I ran that for several years, working in courthouses in Northampton and Belchertown, down in Hampshire County, up to Greenfield and Orange. And with Deb and with everybody at the Opioid Task Force and Sherry Sullivan down at the Hampshire Hope Coalition in Hampshire County. And what we would do is we would work with folks who were getting into criminal trouble because of their substance use issues and try to lead them into treatment and help them get into recovery and avoid the court system and a criminal record. And so that was work that I was very passionate about, having met individuals all over Hampshire and Franklin County and hearing their stories. And this is an issue that's affected all of us. You know, I have friends I went to high school with who are no longer with us, who were afflicted with this disease and this addiction. So it's something I take that work with me to the legislature. And I asked then Speaker DeLeo if I could be on the Mental Health, Substance Use, and Recovery Committee because of that work that I had done. And I was so happy that I was appointed to join Rep Whips on that committee last session. And this year, as we prepared for the new session, I asked now Speaker Mariano, no matter what other committees I was on, please leave me on that committee. I really feel like that's the next pandemic. As soon as we solve COVID, we're going to be dealing with mental health issues, especially, but also substance use issues. We know that as folks have been isolated and quarantined, overdoses have gone up for the first time in the last 3 or 4 years. Domestic violence has gone up, sexual assault, child abuse, all of these things. So I think there's a lot of work to be done in that committee this session, and I'm really honored to be on that committee and to work with Rep. Whips and our colleagues on these important issues.
That's great. It's work that's important to our community and clearly deeply personal to you. So in terms of work, let's talk about workforce development. It's one of the areas right now that's taken on added importance, I think, as folks are getting vaccinated and businesses are resuming full production. And as you both know, community colleges are the workforce development engine for both individuals and for the businesses in the region they serve. What can we expect this legislative session in terms of your agendas as they relate to community colleges? And Rep. Carey, do you mind starting us off here?
Absolutely. I mean, as we come out of this pandemic and folks are getting vaccinated and we want to reopen the Commonwealth and we want to build back better across the country, it's so important that we get people back to work and get them back to work safely. And, the workforce development issue is one that's always been an issue out here in Western Mass. How can we convince folks that you don't have to go to Boston, you don't have to go to New York City, especially people that grow up out here, people that go to the great colleges that we have out here. Let's keep them here. And, as we look at what changes have we made that we can keep, let's keep telework. Let's, maybe if it's not work from home 5 days a week, have a hybrid approach where you go into the office when you need to. Right now, we're in the middle of constructing the next fiscal year budget. So when I think about workforce development and community colleges, we're so lucky. As I sit here in East Hampton, I've got Hoyle Community College right up the hill. And then a lot of my constituents also go up to Greenfield Community College. And when I visit those institutions, it's so amazing to see how much life, how much energy, how many courses are there. The work you do, President, and your team to really help people find what they need, no matter what that career is or what that path of study is. So as we're dealing with the budget, that's kind of been my focus this last week, and certainly will be next week. We're looking at the House proposal has $315 million for community colleges, with $2.5 million for early college programs, which I think are really creative and wonderful, and $130 million for scholarship funding, which is up from last year too. So I think that's a huge part of our job, is making sure we're continuing to support you and your colleagues and the good work that you're doing to help your students and students across the Commonwealth and other community colleges too, not just Greenfield.
Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate your understanding and your advocacy for what we do. And Rep. Whips, what are your thoughts?
Well, I am a very proud graduate of a community college. I love the idea of affordability of community college. And also, in my instance, I wasn't 100% sure when I left high school where I was going to be headed, and certainly never thought I'd be headed to the State House as a representative at that time. And the affordability, especially when I graduated, my parents had 2 other children in college. So, the affordability of community college was so important. And also the ability to try different things. I mean, when you go to a 4-year school, quite often you kind of have the set menu of what you need to do. And I look at community college as more of an a la carte, where you can pick this and you can pick that, and you can try things, and you might change your whole idea of where you were headed when you got there. We've done a terrific job in Massachusetts with the transfer credits, getting kids started out at our community colleges that wish to move on to a 4-year school. And then as a business owner, over the years, I've sent a lot of my employees to our community colleges to help with basic skills. I mean, you start in the factory and learn the product, and then you might become interested in engineering. Well, you can go to GCC or the Mount and you can take an AutoCAD class and see if that's something that fits, or even basic writing and business communication. I mean, our community colleges have done a tremendous job allowing us to hire from within, which is so important when you're building a workforce. And also, I mean, we know education is the best way to eradicate poverty.
Absolutely.
Education is so very important. And in this pandemic, we have learned people can learn online. There's, the hybrid model that people can do. And there have been a lot of shift in the job market right now. So I look at our community colleges as an opportunity to bring people up from poverty. And again, a wonderful place for first generation college students to begin and then move on. And I can't say enough about your team, President Eve, your advisors, and your people who really spend time with students who may or may not know exactly where they want to be, but it's that opportunity that is so important. And our community colleges give opportunity to people. So I'm grateful, and we'll continue to work with all of my colleagues to make sure that our community colleges are well funded.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you both. And let's talk about another asset that our region has, and that is our farms, our agricultural sector. And we know that they've been hit by this pandemic, and climate change and all of these other factors have affected them. In terms of our local farms, can you share with us some of the ways that the state has supported the agricultural sector here locally?
One of the best things that the state has done in Rep. Carey, and I believe pretty much all of our neighboring colleagues are all members of the Food Systems Caucus, which is I think the largest caucus at the State House right now. And whether it's somebody from Gloucester advocating for fishermen or folks out here who are advocating for our farmers, but to put more money into the HIP program. It is a healthy incentives program, and it allows for people who are on the SNAP program to get healthy local foods. They can get either through a CSA or farmers market, and whatever food they buy, that fresh local produce, the dollars they spend is actually re-upped into their SNAP card, which is fantastic. So we have families that are experiencing food insecurity that have the benefit of fresh local produce, which also helps our farmers and has that, another market for our farmers. So one of the things we've done an awful lot over the years is talk about how can we get the produce from the farmers to the folks who really need it. And we have every single session, we have increased the amount of money in the HIP program, which is just, I can't say enough about it. And again, you're feeding people healthy, fresh food, and you're keeping your farmers busy and getting their produce out to folks. So I think that's one of the biggest things we've done in the last year or two.
Fantastic. Rep. Carey, you have quite a bit of farms in your district also.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're lucky. They're so beautiful. And Hadley, which I represent, Hadley has more protected APR land than any of the 351 cities and towns in Massachusetts.
Wow.
So this is an issue that comes up a lot, and I'm happy to work on. As a member of the Food Systems Caucus and also a member of the Joint Committee on Environment, Natural Resources, and Agriculture. This is something that's at the top of my mind all the time. And a big thing is listening to the farmers. I didn't grow up on a farm. My sister owns a farm now, but I didn't grow up on a farm. And so learning about it and the issues and the struggles that they're facing, so that I can go to Boston and advocate with my colleagues who are from gateway cities or coastal towns or have their own unique things that they bring, and being able to advocate for those farms. The HIP program, as we heard from Rep. Whips, just a win-win-win for the people making the food, selling the food, and buying the food. But over the course of the pandemic, I had to pivot a little bit in the work that we've been doing. And a couple of things we've been able to do is the COVID-19 food security infrastructure grants. There was $36 million available when things were really shut down, to where the farm still had some money coming in, could still improve their infrastructure so that when people were back to buying, they were ready. And a lot of the farms really did an amazing job switching ears right at the shutdown and saying, okay, where are we going to sell now? Schools closed. We used to sell to schools. Where are we going to sell now? Who can we help? Let's get it to the community center, to the senior center, and institute more delivery, curbside pickup. They were able to make those changes on the fly, which I was so happy that we were able to support that. And then, we were also fought to make sure they got the respect they need, as essential workers. There was a time where it was hard for farm workers to get a COVID test or then to get a COVID vaccine. And you have to remind folks sometimes, the folks at the grocery stores, they're essential workers 100%, but the folks making the food and sending it there, they got to be too, because that's really where the chain starts. And so that was an important part of the pandemic work that we've been doing.
Fantastic. It's nice to see that you're looking at the entire pipeline of the food systems, from the folks who are growing the food, making the food, to ensuring that cities and towns and rural areas have access to healthy food. So thank you so much for your work on that. Let's get a little bit more playful. I learned quite a bit about the two of you at the beginning of the session. Chef Whips, not Rep Whips. You are a foodie and you're a master chef. What's your go-to comfort food, and do you do dessert? I'm curious.
I have been home alone during COVID isolation, so I'm trying to avoid desserts. My friend Dan said he's been exercising, and I've been trying to eat fresh fruit instead of baked goods. But as far as comfort food goes, I love ethnic food. I've traveled quite a bit, and not being able to travel because of COVID, I'm trying to experiment in my kitchen and have those culinary journeys at home. Over the years, I've had paella in Valencia and a pork sandwich in Havana and cacio de pepe in Rome, and being able to have these fabulous food experiences, which kind of remind you of where you are, whether it's when you smell pot roast, you think you're in grandma's house on a Sunday afternoon. So I've been trying to just have little adventures and journeys relating to food. And I've been very blessed to be a part of the Quabbin Harvest Co-op Spice Club. And every month, Nelini, who is a wonderful chef from Guyana, creates a recipe for us all to do. And we've had Caribbean curry and jerk chicken recipes and all of these different concoctions. And it's been fun. And I'm just kind of expanding my base. And until I'm okay to get on a plane and go somewhere, I'm going to have to bring the cultural food to my home.
Well, it sounds like you and I need to trade us a few recipes.
Definitely. I'd love that.
That's great. So, Rep Carrie, do you ever get to taste her food?
Not yet, but once we get back in the State House, I think you got to bring some stuff in. I'm getting hungry just listening to you, Rep.
What's your outlet? We've heard a lot about how much Rep Carrie likes to cook and how much she loves to travel. How do you let out steam?
I wish I could cook. That's a skill I haven't tackled yet, but I think, like the two of you, I love to travel. I love baseball. I was supposed to go to San Diego. A friend of mine moved out there right before the pandemic. So I was going to go visit him, check out some West Coast ballparks I hadn't been to. So that's on my list once it's safe to travel again. But as I've been home, during the shutdown and the quarantine, I've dusted off the treadmill down in the basement to try to at least stay a little active so I didn't binge watch too much TV. So that's something I don't do as much as I should. But a lot of the local charity 5Ks have gone to virtual events, and I can contribute and run down in the. At least I'm not being too lazy, since I never leave my house.
Well, I can't say that I've been staying fit during this pandemic, so kudos to you. Fantastic. Well, it's been great to hear about the great work that all of you are doing, that both of you are doing, and also to hear about your personal sites, to get to know you a little better. So thank you so much for joining us today. And I am so grateful, the college is grateful, and I know our entire community is grateful for your leadership in the State House. And we really appreciate it. Thanks for joining me today for an episode of Candor with Prez Eve.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
My pleasure. Take good care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.